especially, we're looking at about 180 schools at the very least. 180, because this report that was put together, has a number of states in the north in focus, but they were only able to assess some parts of the states, some parts of the areas within the northern states, and then some of the northern states they couldn't even get to at all because of how bad the situation is there. But they're reporting at least 180 public schools that have been shut down due to insecurity in northern Nigeria. I think the research was carried out by reporters from Daily Trust, and it showed that many schools that had been shut down was due to the attacks on villages by bandits, just as some of them are now serving as camps for people displaced by insecurity. So the bandits came in and what have you, made a mess of things. The schools had to shut down, and the ones that came back to some form of functionality, it turns out that they are now used as camps for people displaced by insecurity. And the question is, what then happens to the students? The correspondents from Daily Trust did a breakdown, some sort of a breakdown, topping that list with the states mostly affected is Benue State with 55 schools shut down. And then right after Benue State, we have Katsina State that with a reported 52 schools shut down. Third on that list in terms of the ranking is Zamfara State with 39 schools. Niger has 30, while Sokoto and Kaduna have 6 schools each. And the investigation, like I said, because of, inability to assess some of the states, because of how bad the security situation is there, or some of the terrains, they couldn't assess it. But the ones that they couldn't touch on at all are Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, said peculiar challenges occasioned by Boko Haram attacks in the last 15 years made it almost difficult, or impossible rather, for them to be able to assess them. While in some cases, the schools had been reopened as IDP camps, just as like I mentioned earlier. So some of the schools that had been reopened were serving as camps. And then in some other instances, you have IDP camps separately that are attending to the children in that camp, with some sort of a makeshift school, just to give them the opportunity to begin to learn. Also, many displaced communities, even though they've been rebuilt, you have a development that led to the relocation of IDPs to their ancestral homes alongside their children, but that's about it. The children are largely unable to attend school. So if you're looking at a minimum of 180 schools shut down, not covering some other states in the northeast, you can imagine when it comes to the numbers, what it's going to be like. ICIR reports that Nigeria, of course, has one of the highest numbers of out-of-school children in the world, with estimates ranging between 10 and 20 million naira. And this is also according to a 2024 UNICEF report. Specifically, our country's education system has been facing this alarming crisis. We're looking at about 10.2 million children of primary school age and another 8.1 million of junior secondary school age out of school. According to data from the National Mass Education Program Initiative, the number of out-of-school children stands at 1.4 million in Katsina, representing about 45.9% of its school-age population. Kebbi State has about 67.6% of its school-age population out of school, recording over 1.06 million children outside the classroom. Sokoto records about 1.25 million children, and then you have Katsina, Sokoto, and Kebbi leading the ranking out of the out-of-school children. Other states, of course, featuring in that. There's a whole lot of detail when you get into this report that just makes you want to cry out and say, what is the way forward? Right? That's our first story that we're going to be touching on this afternoon. I also have another report that is looking at how our MDAs are failing a transparency test, and another one on electoral reform. Stay tuned. It's 95.1 Nigeria Info. We'll be back after this.
Hello, Abuja. This is Kids FM, the family fun radio. Kids FM is packed with exciting drama, engaging games, inspiring stories, great music, and the kind of conversation
Hard facts.
Hard facts.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info.
Thank you for staying with us on your number one talk station, 95.1 Nigeria Info. We are still looking at the big three. Remember that you can join in on the conversation by going to our Facebook and YouTube channels at Nigeria Info Abuja, where we are streaming live. And it is with joy and gladness that I get to say that my guest is in the studio. Special welcome to Mr. Peter Akah, also known as Peter for Nigeria, social advocate, advocate for justice, and most importantly, advocate for social reform. Good to have you here, sir. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes,
Good
sir.
day, Nigerians. Thank you for having me.
All right, then. Let's get straight into it. We already started talking about one of the biggest stories today, looking at the state of insecurity and what it's done to schools and our children in the north. At least 180 schools shut. So the news report says 180 schools shut, but they also mentioned the fact that they were not able to assess all the states in the north, especially those most affected by activities of Boko Haram and the rest. So just looking at Zamfara, Niger State, Sokoto, Kaduna, Katsina, and Benue were having 180 schools shut down. States like Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa that have peculiar challenges. The investigation did not include those numbers. So you can imagine if we were to factor all that in, just not the number of schools, but the number of children that are affected. And the question remains, for how long are we going to continue like this? All these states with that peculiar insecurity challenges, it does seem like not a lot is being done. I mean, you can look at all the vulnerable groups. We're looking at the children. When you think about the women also, and long-term impact on these communities and what it means for our country, where do we go from here? And why does it seem like it's a helpless situation? Just a few days ago, Governor of Nasarawa State was taking on his other northern governors to say, we have money to address our insecurity challenges. Let's do it. 4 times the amount that he received in 2019. We're talking trillions of naira and still nothing. So how do we take this on and how do we deal with this society? We're talking about the future of Nigeria. We're talking about the future of Nigeria. I remember watching... I was on your social media handle just yesterday, and I noticed that you reposted from 2024, and you had this thing where you were carrying an elderly person on your back, and it's like I was like, okay, you didn't even do another one this year. So the same issues that are pervading us, we're still having them this year. And this continues to happen, and we continue to talk about the future. The president himself addressed the youth, said, take on opportunities and all of that. Meanwhile, we're raising children that are largely uneducated due to failures of our government.
Good.
So how do we move forward from this point?
First, thank you very much for having me. In fact, I think you have perfectly painted the picture. When after 65 years of independence, the statement is still a fairy tale and the same tales by moonlight by the commander-in-chief. And when you hear the statement of the president say that insecurity is better, and then you now read these grim statistics with persons being killed in places like Kwara and almost every other part of the country, where today in Nigeria we have security and insecurity officials holding peace meetings in Katsina for a peace deal where bandits come out and grant press conferences and claim and state clearly that these killings and banditry will not stop for as long as there is injustice against them. And remember that before all of this, Nigeria has a total number of more than 15 million out of school children. That is an entire generation of human beings are not being properly engaged to develop and become sane human beings to themselves. And we are talking about insecurity. But the question we should ask is, Somi, what is government not saying about insecurity? Who are the beneficiaries of insecurity in Nigeria? Has insecurity become a multilateral or national economic investment where the more money you pour into it, the more it flourishes? So it has no end. How many times during the Buhari presidency did government come out to tell you that we are going to release a list of sponsors of Boko Haram and terrorism? How many of those names were mentioned? The current National Security Advisor, Alhaji Nuhu Ribadu, he was in Plateau during one of the killings earlier this year, and the National Security Advisor admitted that the killings going on in some parts of the country, the weapons that are being used are weapons that are stolen from government armory. Somi, criminals are stealing weapons from government, using to kill citizens, and this government cannot protect them. And do you know that it was the same President Tinubu who called on Jonathan to resign if he has failed to protect the lives of Nigerians? Because security of life and people will be the primary responsibility of government. So when you have this dysfunctionality, how many law enforcement agencies are under the control of the state governors? You give them allocation, you give them security votes, but they will tell you that we have no control over anything. The entire structure and system is dysfunctional. And Nigerians will remain the collateral for this bad leadership if we do not fix it.
So how do we fix it? Is the question.
You cannot fix it unless you get good leadership. How do you get good leadership? By what we have been championing. There has to be an electoral revolution in Nigeria. There must be consequences for actions. You cannot have a situation where you say there was Operation Safe Corridor. You renewed Boko Haram terrorists. They say they were repentant. They gave them empowerment in the middle of the war. And today you say that you have not incentivized criminality. What we are saying is that there is no deterrence. So in Nigeria, if you want to have a peace meeting with politicians or government, be very criminal. Kidnap people, kill a lot of people, then you'll be called for a peace deal. What is the incentive not to go into crime and criminality? It is flourishing. People are making a living out of it. Until we have a system where there is the full rot of the law, you take care of indigent children, let children and people be gainfully employed. There are economic aspects to this. There is the poverty and illiteracy aspect to it. Nothing is being done to fix it from the foundational basis. And that is why it is exacerbating.
So I hear what you say about electoral reform, and we're going to have a conversation around that.
Yeah.
So a meeting was held yesterday where there were insinuations, or even a statement, outright statement made, saying that that might just flop under this administration. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're still 2 years away, even though we can see the flurry of activity going on.
Yeah.
But my question, I always come back to that again. You mentioned something important about indigent children,
Yes.
Educating them, empowering them, and all of that. Is that something that we can start to do even now, before 2027? And how do we get that done? What are we missing there? The charge, a lot of the time, is to state governors first and foremost.
Yes.
And the fact that they seem to be sitting or resting on their oars in the midst of this disastrous situation. So when conversation comes up like this, my biggest concern is what can we start to do now? Because we don't know how bad insecurity is going to get come 2027. The president has made promises yesterday saying, look, it's not going to be words on paper anymore, but we're going to see it. But my fear always is that we trust, and then the trust is. So what can we start to do even now? Looking at those key areas that you talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what we can start to do? We must start to mobilize and prepare to fix government in 2027. And this is why I will tell you, there is no intervention that has worked since 1999. The question you should ask is, if you want to talk about what we should start to do, maybe to begin to ensure that children are in school, what has all the work of NGOs, churches, religious institutions, how far has it gone in Nigeria today? Nigeria has a Universal Basic Education Act where there is free and compulsory education from primary to secondary until you decide to choose a vocation or go to higher to the university. So how do you put side by side a UBE Act that provides for that and then more than 15 million out of school children? There is a disconnect. Meaning the institutions that should provide the policy and framework for these things to be implemented are not doing what they ought to do. You cannot have a country where there is a minister of education and then you have 15 million children out of school. So what does minister resume in office every day to do?
Is it maybe a case of round pegs in square holes? And I'm not just talking about the minister. I'm even talking about the heads of these agencies, the UPEC and the other ones that you talked about. Is it that maybe perhaps that is the issue? And if you can start from there, then we are on course.
That is one of the issues. It is not all of the issues. In fact, you can even put a square peg in a square hole. And then the policy makers and the political head make the situation almost impossible for you to implement whatever you went there to achieve. So it is not just about, once you do not have a common and a clear vision and the political will to see it through to the end, you who is going there only have good wishes, and your good wishes are just to an extent. It is not because there are not people who mean well in government, but does the environment permit you to be able to exercise the will and implement it? So the risk is that if we continue to look at the low-hanging fruits, and you said, oh, let us look at the children that are out of school, let us think about the women. If the politicians and the leaders who put you in this precarious situation, if they rig themselves and come back in 2027, what happens? You have another 4 years. You will lament. Whatever you are discussing about Nigeria today, you have discussed before. It is only discussed on different forums, or maybe you change the topics. But if we do nothing, 66 years, we will have another press conference. The same message will be, we are laying a foundation. We are laying the Nigerian foundation. Now, how many years did it take to lay them? 65 years laying one foundation. This thing is it a spiritual problem? So that is where the problem is. We are focusing on the immediate interventions, while the people who are destabilizing the foundation are working on retaining power and coming. If you fail to talk about 2027 now, politicians are already in 2027.
Of course.
This government is the only government that came in 2023 and almost began campaign the same year. If you are traveling around Abuja, you see the posters of 2027. So you who are the victims, if you are not preparing for it, you are late. Whatever you are talking about insecurity, talking about education, you will discuss it again in 2028 if you do nothing and this crop of people are still at the helms of affairs.
Let's talk about preparations then. I mean, since that's the path that we are doing right now. Opposition and civil society leaders yesterday voiced strong doubts about Nigeria's electoral future, warning that reforms are unlikely under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. This happened at a virtual National Electoral Reform Summit, where they resolved to mobilize strategies to prevent what they describe as attempts by the ruling party to rig its way back to power in 2027. We had a number of bigwigs there. The likes of former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, was there, and he spoke, saying, rather bluntly, that no meaningful electoral reform can take place under this government. He argued that politicians in power were never committed to reform as it threatened their grip on office. Another person that, I mean, he drew from his experience and all that, but I will move on from that. Former President Goodluck Jonathan and former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, listed as chairman and keynote speaker for that event, were absent. I think another person that spoke, Dr. Usman Bugaji, former presidential aide and public affairs analyst, was there. He said reform efforts had failed repeatedly because those in power had no interest in genuine change. They're all saying pretty much the same thing. And also, former Education Minister Obieze Kwesili was there. And in her case, she criticized the judiciary, accusing it of worsening Nigeria's political crisis. And she said, we have to take the war to the gate of the judiciary. It's like elections are now an industry for the judiciary. A number of other people were there. I'll come to some of their thoughts as well. But were you there by any chance?
Yes, it was virtual. I joined.
Okay.
It was supposed to be a physical summit, but for certain reasons it has been moved to a future date, and then the virtual summit was now held to launch that electoral reform movement.
Now, given that is one of the biggest, if not the, and everywhere that people see you, that's what you have on. Electoral reform, electoral change. What do you make of this statement? Because what I'm hearing is not different from what a lot of people have said. The thing about politicians, why would they try and fix what brought them into power in the first place? I remember when somebody said that thing, I thought back to the time of the late Musa Yar'Adua. He came in on a flawed election. He admitted it was, and then he tried to change
to reform it. Thank you.
Now, but there is this air of forget about it. It's never going to work.
Nobody's even talking about it.
So for somebody like you who has been pushing this mandate for a long time, would you walk with this narrative? Do you believe it? And if you don't believe it, how do we rejig the narrative?
Let me begin by telling you that it is a deliberate attempt at ensuring that people are completely frustrated from not just elections, but issues that concern Nigeria.
What is the deliberate attempt? What they said?
The deliberate attempt is the kind of misgovernance that you have, the kind of political, maladministration or whatever you call it, so that you become detached from the system. So today, the average Nigerian does not even believe that Nigeria can work. When you talk about free and fair elections, a lot of people will tell you it is a mirage. It cannot happen in Nigeria. But you know the truth of the matter. Nigeria will never move forward until the votes of the people begin to count. Until the people in power become afraid of the power of the people, we are going nowhere.
So how do we reconcile the apathy with
this statement?
Yes.
And that is where I was coming to. When you hear somebody like a former governor telling you that the persons will never do a reform, those statements are actually facts. There is no political will to do an electoral reform that will give you free and fair election. It is like asking for the resignation letter of about 90% of the current politicians. You made a very correct statement when you say President Yaradua, who came in 2007, admitted that the elections that brought him were flawed. Unfortunately, he died. The then President Jonathan took it a step further to sign the 2011 Electoral Act and then went ahead to conduct an election that was seemingly free and fair, which he lost as an incumbent. Then President Buhari came and started the calamity that destroyed INEC and to what we have today. Now, the current president is one of the only presidents since our 4th Republic who is not talking about electoral reforms or fixing INEC. When you ask what is the reason, your guess is as good as mine. But the same president claims to be a supporter of the MKO Abiola struggle of 1993, which, by the way, was about free and fair elections. Mm-hmm. So when you hear a politician tells you that we cannot have free and fair election because the people in power will not give you, then the question is, who will be the people who will give you?
Bam.
Because you know what? If you cannot put the necessary pressure on the current leadership or set of persons there to obtain what you need or what you want, if you allow them consolidate on the criminality of 2023, do you think that the persons who will come after this will be better than these ones? The question you will now have to ask is the power of the people and the people in power, who should be greater? I have said it clearly that what will change the fortunes of elections in Nigeria will be an electoral revolution. Nigerians must be ready to take up a critical mass and exercise your right to peaceful assembly and ensure that you impose on the National Assembly and the government that the vote of the people must count.
How do they achieve this beyond protests and laying siege to whatever office or National Assembly?
Within the protest and the laying of the siege, you now begin the consideration of the bills and everything that is going into the Electoral Act. Don't get it twisted. There is a judicial aspect of it. If the judiciary had done the right thing, we will not even be talking about INEC.
What was the wrong thing that the judiciary did?
I mean, INEC decided to go against its own guidelines and the judiciary did not see any reason to hold them to their standards. The Electoral Act 2022 said Section 60 subsection 5 said the presiding officer will transmit the result in a way and manner as prescribed by INEC. Did INEC prescribe a way? Yes. Paragraph 38 of the INEC guidelines clearly spells electronic transmission of results. The outgoing INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood, received more than 300 billion to conduct one election that will use electronic technology. On the day of implementation, he said there was a glitch. Somi, what caused the glitch? Are you aware? You who is a press in the media, the fourth estate of the realm, how do we not have further glitches moving forward? Has the INEC come to tell you we are not interested in what we use taxpayer money to do? So while you are going to exercise and put civic pressure on the authorities to obtain it, you also deliberate, because by the time you get to the end of it all, they can give you A and take B because they must put a loophole and a caveat. And people must also exercise their right to protecting their votes. And then again, if you now listen to a statement by politicians like this, if you do not do anything, what will have to end it is that there will be a coalition. You know, we are talking about a coalition, and I am not against coalitions, but remember that it was a coalition that brought us to where we are today, the coalition of 2014. So we are the coalition capital of the world. Imagine somebody emerging from the coalition. Let's say Peter Obi, or maybe anybody, Amechi or anybody, and you say that I want to fight corruption in the oil sector. And you turn around and look at the members of the coalition who helped you to get there. And you see the power players in the oil sector. If you go against them, and then they decide to pull the rug off your feet and go and recollect and take you out, what does that leave you? There is no substitute for power coming directly from the people, where the leader is emboldened and entitled to the people and not a bunch of political actors who take power for the sake of power. You cannot substitute free and fair elections for coalitions or any other means, because elections do not only provide government, they give legitimacy to government. So it is good and it is true that there is no political will. The question is, how many are those people who do not want to do electoral reform? How many of us are the victims of the rigging of election? When you calculate it, you should know whose strength should be more.
So let's deal with the judiciary aspect of this, something that Dr. Ezekwesili mentioned as well. And we'll also come back to, because what you said is start, what they call it, advocating for the laws,
yes,
right, to be amended.
Yeah. Nobody's
speaking about it. Yeah, so we need to get to the practicality of that. But also, this particular summit where this statement was made ended with the same opposition leaders and civic voices talking about urgent reforms. But a lot of what is being done is just talk. So I need us to get to the bottom line of it. So we'll come back to that. But the judiciary.
Yes.
The judiciary.
Judiciary.
Because it seems like something that is a bit far off from the average Nigerian, where you say, okay, go to the National Assembly and start having conversations, go to town halls and create awareness and let the people know why reform is important and all of that. What do we do about reform? Because I imagine that the reform will also have to touch the judiciary. Otherwise, we might be fighting half the fight.
Do you know that it is unfortunate where Nigeria is? If we had a functional judiciary who stood to dispense justice for the state and not for statesmen, we will not have issues. Because no matter the calisthenics done by the executive and legislative arms of government, the judiciary will be there to uphold the law. But when the judiciary becomes a willing tool in the hands of politicians, then you are in a very precarious situation.
Can we say that that is actually the case for our entire judiciary system in Nigeria?
Look, in fact, I have said it earlier that I do not believe that Nigeria has a judiciary. The judiciary is an independent arm of a democratic government that is capable of dispensing justice for the state and not for statesmen. What Nigeria almost has is the legal department of any government in power, where court orders are allowed to the highest bidder. It is no longer the last hope of the common man, it is the last hope of the uncommon man. And I will give you a clear example. One of the greatest ways to identify the dysfunctionality of our institutions in Nigeria today will be the so-called state of emergency by the President Tinubu in Rivers State. Now, not talking whether the state of emergency was right or wrong. The president declared the state of emergency, suspending a duly elected governor.
Right.
Before the National Assembly that has the power to ratify that state of emergency could sit, the president unilaterally on his own swore in a sole administrator. It went to the National Assembly that should be the beacon of democracy, where they were supposed to use two-thirds majority to vote and uphold it. The National Assembly decided to use a voice vote to ratify something as important as a state of emergency. And guess what? The PDP governors decided to approach the Supreme Court to interpret and give a statement on the legitimacy or legality of that suspension. For 6 months, Somi, the Supreme Court of Nigeria was unable to entertain a suit before it until the suspension elapsed. That is the judiciary we are talking about. But unfortunately, they are the only unelected arm of government. They do not run for office. If you protest today and you remove the current Chief Justice, the Constitution guarantees that another person will be reappointed by the same president. So judicial reform will also go through electoral process and through the National Assembly. So as bad as the situation is, Nigeria will have to pick a point where we have many problems. You have many issues. But what is the foundational basis? Where do we begin to fix it from?
That's the question.
That is the question. Once we identify, because you cannot solve all at a time. Nation building is not a marathon, a sprint, it's a marathon. You take it one step at a time, you lay a foundation and then you build on it. Once you get a means of electing, there is also the judicialization of our electoral process. Almost every case of election today ends in court. It is almost like it is the judiciary that picks leaders for the people. Is that what it is supposed to be? That part of the Constitution should be amended. The judiciary can either declare a rerun or a cancellation. You cannot have an election where the electoral umpire, INEC, said there was a glitch and there was a winner. How is there a glitch and a winner? And then the judiciary, the Supreme Court, upholds the results of that election. So we have a problem.
Okay. Speaking about that particular suit, well, not the one that was raised at the Supreme Court, Federal High Court in Abuja today dismissed the suit instituted against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, challenging the March 18, 2025 proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. I think it was a fundamental. I will check who exactly instituted the suit.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think Dolapo Teller attorney was named in the suit.
Yeah.
And the group prayed to the court to void the emergency rule, restore the suspended elected officials, and also bar the administration from acting in place of elected men. Just to toe the line of what you said, I think it was today that this ruling came out, and of course it was dismissed. The suit itself was dismissed. Yes. So I just wanted to mention that there. Okay, we are still talking with our guest. If you're just joining us, Peter Akah is in the studio. He's also known as Peter for Nigeria, and we are going through the big three conversations. We still have one more story to check on. So what I will do is just quickly go through the messages, take the last story after the commercial break, and then we'll open up the phone line so that you can interact with our guests. I'll take this one here. Good afternoon, Somi, and your guest. He says, let's see who this is. Okay, Father from Bonny Island in Rivers State says, I love the guy and I like his patriotism. He's referring to you, sir. He said, please, if they said they are giving the governors more money now, how much was the dollar rate then and how much is it now? The little then is more valuable than now they are receiving more. Please, the subsidy money was supposed to channel into things directly felt by all citizens, especially the poor people. And you gave the money to governors. He says you are shifting the goalpost. Okay. I mean, there's that conversation also about monies saved from subsidy, the increased allocation.
Yes. I thought we were going to get there because I had a lot to say about it.
We are. Let's take this message. Astron from Cuba says, good afternoon. What I discovered about this country is that your message is not very clear, but if I'm getting it correctly, you are saying people criticizing and making noise on good governance will perform worse if given the opportunity. Astron from Kubwa with that message. And this one from Desri says, hello, Somi, and greetings to your guest. It's like I recognize this strong voice. Yes, it's Peter of Nigeria. He says, I like the quote, rebuilding Nigeria for 65 years is not only sad, but wicked from our leaders. My brother Peter, these people are not ready to change our electoral system. Well, the conversation now is, are you waiting for them?
Are you waiting for them
to change it? All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Don't go anywhere.
More conversation, more talk, more right after this. This is
All right, welcome back. It's still Hard Facts, the big three this afternoon, and we are talking on everything from insecurity and what it's doing to our children to electoral reforms. And we are going to touch on what was conducted. I think a transparency test was conducted by the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, and it didn't look good for our MDAs. We're talking about over 500 MDAs, including FIRS, NNPC and NPA not passing that test. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let me quickly get some more messages, and then Joy will take the news, and then Mr. Peter will get back into the conversation. OGB1 says, good afternoon, Sumi. Anywhere in the world, an unproductive population breeds criminality. I'm not exempting other regions from crime and criminality, but northern Nigeria, he says, breeds the highest. How do you populate and accept anybody from anywhere because of political gain? Just watch, he says. During elections, both those you call bandits and the ones at home will have a common front and vote peacefully, meaning it's all politics, but detrimental to the North. Solution, He says, I'm not going to read the solution out. How can you be suggesting this OGB1? No, that's unacceptable. Omar here with a message. Yes, you have Peter for Nigeria here. Okay. We cannot paper over our wounds with rhetoric, this person says. We must organize for change through civic platforms, through uncompromising reforms, through leadership that sees citizens not as saboteurs, but as sacred trust. The true enemies of Nigeria are not the people who lament, but those who are not supporting the electoral reforms. They are the leaders and apologists who normalize failure and call silence patriotism. This is Daddy Shunamite from Gidan Mangro. And the last message before the news. Good afternoon, Nigeria Info. Nice hearing from you. My name is Fresh Prince from Wuse 2. Well, Mr. Peter is so on point this afternoon. There's no way we'll get good leadership without good electoral process. 10 to 20 million out of school children is a big deal. We just have to fix it before it's too late. Let's say 30 to 40 years to come, Nigeria's population will be doubled. And I ask, what are we doing today in order to control this population? It is well with Nigeria. I'll take a pause here because it's looking like Peter will want to respond to a number of things that were raised, but we'll have to just take those responses right after the commercial break. Stay with us. It's 95.1 Nigeria Info.
In a time where people yearn for information.
Information is quick. The louder the reach, the better.
Bits
Pieces.
and the whole. All the details right here on Nigeria Info.
We feed you with the right information
The right topic of interest.
and the right conversation.
I heard the Minister for Information, and he was trying to rationalize why the NLC should not go on strike now.
So one of the challenges at Africa, there's a lot of poverty and there's a lot of illiteracy.
Let's talk.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info.
I don't know how pretty that basket is considering the seriousness of the situations, but a 2025 Transparency and Integrity Index report has revealed that only 6 out of 517 ministries, departments and agencies passed the minimum benchmark, leaving 500 trapped in the red zone. What benchmark are they talking about? First of all, you need to know that the organization that conducted this test, being a transparency test, is the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity. And they painted a troubling picture of how low critical agencies from finance to defense, agriculture and education continue to lag behind in accountability. The organization's executive director, Dr. Umar Yakubu, said the assessment, which was conducted in partnership with government oversight bodies, exposed deep gaps in disclosure, ethics, and service delivery. He said, and I quote, "The figures speak for themselves. Citizens rely on these agencies every day, yet the institutions meant to manage trillions in revenue and services lack the transparency expected of them," he explained. He noted, for example, that Nostra, that's the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, came first for the second consecutive year in this rating with about 78.84%. The MDA that followed closely was the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC, also scoring 78%, and an Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission also topped the ranking. Yes, ICPC at 78.13%. Then there were some which were deemed to be in the yellow zone, such as Development Bank of Nigeria, TED Fund, yes, Tertiary Education Trust Fund, yes, that's TED Fund, and the Bank of Industry. The rest of the 511 MDAs all fell in the red zone category, which means they failed the integrity test.
Yes.
We talk a lot about the government,
yes,
and their institutions. Who makes up these institutions? Is it not the people?
Nigerians.
The people who are in these MDAs
agencies
are Nigerians,
yeah,
not elected officials.
Yeah.
What does that tell us as a nation? What do you think?
What it tells us is that Nigeria, what we call governance in Nigeria, is organized criminality. Every institution and every facet of our nation is to support, to aid and abet corruption at every level. If you go to any law enforcement office as we are talking today, somebody is being extorted. Even when it is boldly written, bail is free. Now, when you entrench a culture where people have to be corrupt for you to scale through a system, you begin to reward corruption and criminality.
Who entrenched this culture?
It is because the system, the persons in government have failed to put together a system that criminalizes or punishes bad behavior. Where there is no reward for good behavior and you rather see reward for corruption, corruption will fester. It is what you have nurtured that you are reaping. And it begins from the top. It is good that we are talking about transparency and accountability. Let us look at transparency and accountability on the part of President Tinubu. The president, one of the signature actions of President Tinubu's administration that is very well hailed among everybody in the government is the removal of fuel subsidy. You agree?
Yeah.
Because he said it was corrupt. In fact, he was part of the people who protested against the removal of subsidy under the Jonathan administration. But let us say, fine, you came in about 10 years later and you have done it. If you are truly sincere and honest about a particular process, Somi, between May 29, 2023 and today, October 2025, how much exactly has been saved from the removal of oil subsidy? Do you think it is important for Nigerians to know that this is what has been saved, this is where it is being invested, and this is exactly how it has affected the economy? If you remove, the problem with the subsidy regime in Nigeria was not because we pay subsidy, it was the corruption and criminality in subsidy. Subsidy is paid in different forms in different countries. What we call social securities in Europe and other are all subsidy. So if you say that you took out subsidy from petroleum and you cannot account for exactly how much you have saved, but you have increased pocket money for governors without holding them accountable or without accountability, it is decentralization of corruption. In fact, it only means you have taken subsidy from what could benefit the poor, and we are now subsidizing the lives of the rich because we have taken subsidy for embezzlement now. So today in Nigeria, we are still paying subsidy. The difference is that the poor are now the subsidy for the rich. Do you think that a British Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister, or the US President will take a bold step as removing a policy like removing subsidy, and the country or the citizens do not have a right to knowing exactly how much was there? That information will even help us to know the level of criminality that existed during the subsidy administration. So if, for example, we have saved 100 billion, Somi, do you know how much of 100 billion can return 18 million out of school children back to educational sector? How much is ASU looking for? What exactly, how much do we need to transform our health infrastructure to world class so that even the president can also take treatment in this country and not end up like a former president who passed after 8 years in a foreign clinic, in a private clinic in a foreign land? If we know how much was saved from fuel subsidy, what extent are our highways bad and have become death traps, and how much can be invested into them so that people can see that there is transparency? This is what we took. We ended corruption here, and it has become a good or a benefit for the people. But we are borrowing more. We are borrowing more after removing subsidy. So where is the accountability and transparency? So MDS will take a cue from what they see the persons at the top doing, because even the anti-graft agencies will turn a blind eye when it becomes a person. A former party chairman stated clearly, say, when you come to our party, your sins are forgiven. So we are deceiving ourselves. What we are entrenching and building and nurturing is corruption. So all of this report is just stating the obvious. Go to hospital, go to bank. In Nigeria, the simple thing is have connection everywhere. There is nowhere that is insulated from the corruption, because there is no consequences for doing anything. You can steal money as a former governor, pay school fee of children in advance. The EFCC will declare you wanted, and tomorrow by the time they become friends and bed, the rest of it is history. You move freely. Billions of Naira. So what are we saying? These are just reports. This is just stating the obvious. When you go to the judiciary, you go to the courts, and magistrate or a clerk will tell you that if you do not pay, a file will not move from here to here. Now today.
Have you experienced that personally?
I know people who have experienced it because we have done jobs on that. There are reports. A person, an investigative journalist, disguised himself and was arrested by the Nigerian police, was taken to the prisons. You saw the report by Fisher Soyombo. What did the National Assembly do? Did they call him to say it was like a criminal syndicate from both magistrate to prison warder to everything? He painted a clear picture of what happens inside the Nigerian prison. Not one politician was interested in looking at exactly what that report said and how to fix it. So what we are doing is rewarding corruption. That is why every government office, if you appoint somebody minister today, the first thing they will do is to do Thanksgiving. Do you know why? Now your turn. Your family, if you finish as a minister or a governor and you come and claim that you are poor, your village people or your family people will tell you that maybe you do not know what you are doing. So when it reach your turn, now you go say you won't go do good. You know, collect money.
So let's get back to the starting point. You talked about the fact that we have to take it one step at a time.
Yes.
So clarify again what the first step is?
The first step to fixing a problem is your leadership recruitment process. So we have a problem of both the citizens and the leadership. But it must begin by the citizens realizing that we deserve better, and the leadership is a reflection of us. So we come together to set up a system. In this company where you work, one of the most important departments is the HR. You came in here through the HR department. Imagine where you have a situation where you need an on-air personality like yourself, and a plumber is brought to sit down and hold this mic. That is what INEC is doing to Nigeria. That is what elections are. They are the leadership recruitment process of a country. If you fail to fix it, it then means you want charlatans to continue to find their way into public office while you do the lamentation and complain. So they privatize profit and socialize losses to you. So all of us must come together and raise the issue of leadership and elections to the level of a crisis. When there is an electoral revolution where the power of the people becomes greater than the people in power, you begin to see a shift. When somebody comes, he does not deliver on his policies, you can vote them out. Today in Nigeria, A president, 100 people can be killed and the president will proceed on a vacation. The only confidence is because there is an electoral process you can rig and a judicial system.
What is the timeline for assessment between when the people say, okay, this person that has been elected into power is not doing well and I need to vote them out?
Yeah.
What timeline are we looking at? Every 4 years? Or are there processes that we can institute to say, you've done 1 year, you've done 2 years,
yes,
we're not satisfied? Alele, Kia Musa?
If it were to be legislative arm of government, there is something called a recall that can be instituted by the people. But today, the recall is not even possible. And in Nigeria today, on a normal day, when the will of the people, begins to prevail that they do not want a certain leader and you have committed gross, malpractices, the National Assembly who carries out oversight can impeach. It is possible in other climes. But in Nigeria today, nobody resigns, no matter the allegations. So from the first day, even if the person is bad, the person is rather working to consolidate power to come back. You see the tragedy or the difficult scenario we find ourselves. So what they do is they will throw a lot at you. Every day you wake up in Nigeria, it will be one thing. Tomorrow it is Senator Natasha. Next tomorrow it is one copart who was complaining and is now suspended. Then it is bandits. So that is to make you disillusioned and confused. So a lot of people will rather zone out. The Nigeria matter don't tire me. Let me rather leave it. That is what they want. Refuse to be frustrated. Pay attention to the process. You know why? Because you can still be a victim of a process you decide to ignore. Nigeria is happening to people every day. Look at the Arise TV anchor. Oh, incidentally, is she your namesake?
No, so she's Som Tochukwu.
You okay?
That's Somi.
Somi, yeah.
I'm Apeno Somi.
Okay.
Different names.
Yes,
but similar sounding.
Similar sounding.
Yeah, for the short one, yes.
And you saw what happened from the former Senate President Bukola Saraki had to come and put up a statement that they had legislated that gunshot victims should be treated without any. Imagine, what if there was a quick response and was it possible that she could have survived? So if we wait and continue to lament and complain, victimhood is at the doorstep of anybody.
Okay.
So we must all come together and realize that we can be potential victims and let us overhaul this system. But it will not be by just talk. We must come out, mobilize and protest.
You've mentioned the first step. You've talked about taking it to the gates of a National Assembly, and you've talked about protesting. I want, hopefully, time will allow us to get into more tactical steps that we can take as well. I have a message here. Somebody's also asking for the same thing, steps. But let's open up the phone lines and get the contributions from the listeners, and then we'll come back and wrap up with that. It's 0700951 0000 or 0809-597-4869. On WhatsApp, you can call in or you can send a voice note. Make sure it's no longer than 1 minute 30 seconds. 009-993-0137. Let's talk. Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, our guests.
Good afternoon, sir.
The not to follow from Niger State, chief servant to give for the market.
Go ahead, sir.
Some of our colleagues have been calling and said they are going to win 2027 election. I do ask them, how are you going to win the election? The item did not upload. Is it the same system you are going to win the election? Up to date, they couldn't answer that question. Imagine the item could not upload and the INEC chairman go ahead and announce the winner of the election. Automatically something is wrong. And up to date, our professors, our doctors, let them make a research and find out what is wrong with the IRM and get the answer to us.
Okay.
Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Donatus. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You have a minute. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Commerce Alex on the line.
Go ahead.
I'm begging, what do you call the man name? I forget his name now.
Mr. Peter.
Nigeria.
Yes.
God will bless you. God will bless you.
Amen. Bless you too.
I beg Nigeria to bring this man all the time, please. I beg God, beg. And I need to contribute on that, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. He says, bring him all the time. Let's go to YouTube and Facebook and get a load of what you're saying there. Good afternoon, Somi. This is from Emmanuel Samuel. He said the situation in northern Nigeria keeps getting worse every day, and it seems there's no way out. But sometimes when I hear people like your guest, it gives me hope. I pray we survive. Well, he's saying we need to pray. We also need to act. Is more than just the talk.
Yeah.
It's also walking the walk as well. On Facebook here, Jagada Ezekiel says, I was listening to my radio and I had to switch to Facebook in order to confirm Mr. Peter's voice. Good job you're doing. My number one station, Nigeria Info. Thank you, sir. And this one, Festus Udomo, UEC. He says, Mr. Peter, the unsilent, truthful, fire-speaking oracle. Only you, sir.
Those adjectives.
Thank you for honoring our favorite FM station. Okay, and then also Francis Omaganamani, all the way from Enugu State, also sending his greetings to you. Okay, thank you. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Somi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Ojo, that's President.
Okay. Welcome, Ojo. You have a minute. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I want to appreciate our guest over there. I cannot agree less with him, with most of the things he has said. But the only way I want to be in disagreement with him is the solution he has preferred on the area of selecting our political leaders. So me, I want to tell you this afternoon that selecting our political leaders, whether president, national assembly, state assembly, or governor, is never in the hand of the citizen. It is in the hand of the political parties.
It is in the hand of who?
It is what political parties give us.
Political parties.
Political parties.
Okay.
Because it is what they give to that we will pick from. Now, if the political party are not giving us the right candidates, the best of their members, remember, we don't have it's just like a person between the Red Sea and the Red
Blue Sea.
We don't have a choice that to pick whatever they give to us.
Okay.
So my advice is more Nigerians should go into creation of more political parties. One, join more political parties in order to reduce the forces of the bad eggs in the party.
Okay.
Because we really don't do this. At the end of the day, whatever they present in 2027, that's what I'm going to end up selecting.
All right. Thank you, sir.
That's my take.
Thank you, sir.
Among other things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll just quickly take a response on that. Do you believe that with electoral reforms, his solution is the way out? Or what he's saying is, if Nigerians don't get involved, register on political parties?
It is a part of electoral reform. The operationalization of the political party system, it is very important how the selection process comes. Because you know how it is when politicians begin to, court cases and here and there before you say super delegates and all. So from the primary level, from the political party level, there is no internal democracy. So it is all part of electoral reform. And I agree with whatever that he has submitted.
Okay. Some people will argue, though, that if what you have is still the delegate system, it's all going to just fall apart.
So that is why we must come together and agree. What I am saying, when you see me champion talking about electoral reform and INEC, it's not because you are an island of knowledge or it is for all of us to put our heads together and know that, okay, we have a problem here now. How do we make it better? How do when you have a law that says you can do both direct, indirect, and consensus primaries, that means you have opened it up. So the more powerful people will decide to hijack it, and then you see dollars begin to fly here and there. So if we do not entrench internal democracy at the party level, there are countries where you cannot defect from a party that you elected. You were elected. Once you defect, you lose the seat. So all of that are a broader aspect of the electoral reform we are talking about. From party level to election. Election is not just the event of election day. It is a process that comes from voter registration and all of that. So it is a holistic approach, including political parties' activity.
Okay. Greetings to me and the guests. Nigerians talk a lot about electoral reform, but not about the particular reforms. There was only a glitch in IREF about the nationwide data concerning the presidential election, whereas there was no glitch in the concurrent National Assembly elections, Banky is saying. The real result had already been assented to by different party agents at the polling booths. None of them contested the eventual upload by the IREF in the presidential election. So what are you saying here? Are you saying that there's a particular reform that needs to be carried out here, or are you saying that electoral reform is not a call at all. I'm not quite sure what you're going at with your message, Banky. Or perhaps, Peter, you understood the thrust of his message and you want to respond to it?
I do not understand the crux of his message, but whatever it is, the question is, why should the IREV not work? I think you should be more interested that when you spend taxpayer money and on an election, the Senate goes through, but somehow one does not go through. So you should be interested in why it shouldn't work, so that everybody has, a transparent way of accessing the same result and not having it end up at the judiciary. I think that's where focus should be placed.
Okay, let's take this last call before the break. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Peter.
Good afternoon, sir.
You have less than a minute, bros. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Omar.
Okay.
I actually want to respond to the caller before the message you read. Now, if you ask me here, whichever way a candidate emerges from any political party is still be checkmated by INEC. Yes. Whichever way, whether by direct primaries or whatever primaries they do, INEC play a major part in every emergence of any candidate of any political party. So INEC should be upright.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, straight to the point. We appreciate that, Tamara. Let's go on this commercial break. When we come back, I don't know why, I've held Peter for longer than I agreed with him. So let's see how much time he can give us after the break. Stay with us.
Time isn't just ticking. It is making a statement. Every second counts as you wear authentic and quality watches and eyewear from Citizen, Bulova, Tissot, Kenneth Cole, Timex, Ray-Ban, Versace, Vogue, Oakley. Think about it. We have them all at watch galleries for both ladies and gents. Come explore our world of eyewear and watches at any of watch galleries at Jabi Lake Mall, Silverbird Entertainment Center, CBD, Sheriff Cityscape Plaza, Abuja. At watch galleries, we do not just offer high-quality products, but also product knowledge